Hello friends, welcome you all to the learning series on great scientists and technologists of the world. Today we are going to learn about Galileo Galilei, one of the famous and renowned scientists of 16th century. Please watch till the end to learn about Galileo Galilei. If you are new to the channel, kindly subscribe and click on the bell button to get our subsequent videos. Let's go into the video. On the 15th of February 1564, Galileo was born to Vincenzo Galilei as the first child. Vincenzo was a wool trader and a musician who lived in Pisa, Italy. He was pretty famous for his contributions to the theory and practice of music. Vincenzo moved his family to Florence in the early 1570s. This was the place where the Galilei family had lived for generations. It was here that little Galileo was sent to a Jesuit monastery. Vincenzo wanted little Galileo to study medicine. He did not want his son to be a musician as it was difficult to earn enough money. After studying at the Jesuit school for 4 years, Galileo shocked his father by telling him that he wanted to become a priest. Vincenzo knew that his son was gifted. He did not want him to become a priest. So, he hastily withdrew Galileo from the monastery and sent him to the University of Pisa to study medicine. At the University of Pisa, Galileo became fascinated with mathematics. Unfortunately, he was bored with all the other subjects and quite often told his professors that he hated their classes. He was frequently absent from class as he was out exploring some strange new mathematical theory. Once Galileo noticed a lamp swinging overhead. Curious to find out how long it took the lamp to swing back and forth, he used his pulse to time the large and small swings. Galileo discovered that the period of each swing was exactly the same. He at once came up with the pendulum law, which was eventually used to regulate clocks. This instantly made Galileo famous. Galileo's poor performance and rude behavior forced the university to inform Galileo's family that their son was in danger of being thrown out of the university. Galileo's father quickly worked out a compromise that allowed Galileo to be tutored full-time in mathematics by the mathematician of the Tuscan court. Even this did not help, and soon Galileo left the University of Pisa without a degree. He was a college dropout. With no money in his purse, Galileo realized that he had to somehow earn a living. He started tutoring students in mathematics. During this time, he successfully developed a balance that could mention how much the object being weighed is heavier than the same volume of water. Although Galileo was brilliant, he had offended too many people in the field. So he found it hard to fulfill his dream of becoming a professor of mathematics. Then suddenly Galileo got a chance to lecture at the Academy of Florence. The audience was totally impressed by Galileo and people started talking about him. Within a short time, Galileo received a 3-year appointment to the University of Pisa, the same university that had thrown him out without a degree. At the University of Pisa, Galileo began debating one of Aristotle's laws. The law stated that heavier objects fell faster than lighter objects. Since the law had been blindly accepted, Galileo decided to test it. Galileo climbed to the top of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, carrying with him balls of varying size and weight. He threw all the balls off the top at the same time. To everyone's surprise, they all landed at the same time. Thus Galileo had proved that Aristotle was wrong. In those days, Aristotle was considered to be the father of science. So when Galileo had disproved Aristotle's theory, many people hated him. To make matters worse, Galileo continued to behave rudely to his colleagues. Not surprisingly, the University of Pisa decided not to renew Galileo's contract. Disappointed, Galileo moved on to the University of Padua. Once again Galileo found himself in desperate need of money. His father had just died and Galileo had become the head of the family. He had many debts and also had to pay the dowry for one of his sisters. Galileo knew he could be thrown in prison for not repaying his debts. Galileo desperately decided to try and invent something that could bring him some money. In 1596 he invented a military compass that could be used to accurately aim cannonballs. This became a huge success. In 1597 he modified the compass so that it could be used in land surveying. Together, these inventions earned him a good amount of money. By 1609 Galileo was very famous. He had determined and proved that the distance fallen by a body is proportional to the square of the elapsed time, the law of falling bodies, and that the trajectory of a projectile is a parabola. Both these conclusions contradicted Aristotle's physics. In the spring of 1609 Galileo heard about the invention of a new instrument that could show distant things as though they were nearby. Galileo quickly visited the nearest spectacle maker's shop and bought up a lot of old glasses. By trial and error, Galileo quickly figured out the secret of this invention and made his own three-powered telescope. Instead of stopping, Galileo continued to improve the instrument and produced increasingly powerful telescopes. In August of that year, he presented an 8-powered telescope to the Venetian Senate. The Senate was so impressed that they rewarded him with a lifetime job and doubled his salary. Galileo was soon observing the planets with instruments that magnified up to 20 times. In December he drew the moon's phases as seen through the telescope, showing that the moon's surface was not smooth, as most people thought, but that it was rough and uneven. In January 1610 he discovered 4 moons revolving around Jupiter. These discoveries were earth-shaking, and Galileo quickly produced a little book he called the Sidereal Messenger. For his efforts Galileo was rewarded with an appointment as mathematician and philosopher of the Grand Duke of Tuscany. Throughout this time Galileo was working upon a secret theory. Unlike most of the people who believed that the sun revolved around the earth, he believed in the theory of the great astronomer Copernicus, that the earth revolved around the sun. Galileo's increasingly blatant acceptance of the theories of Copernicus began to cause trouble for him. In 1613 he wrote a letter to his student Benedetto Castelli comparing the Copernican theory with certain passages from the Bible. Several priests in Florence lodged complaints against Galileo in Rome. Galileo went to Rome to defend his good name. But he was warned by Cardinal Bellarmine not to hold or defend the Copernican theory. In 1623 Galileo published a book called The Assayer. This was a brilliant book on physical reality and an explanation of the new scientific method. To his luck, one of Galileo's friends, Cardinal Barberini, was chosen to be the new pope. He was named Pope Urban VIII. Galileo met the Pope and dedicated the book to him. The Pope gave Galileo permission to write a book about the theories of the universe. When the book, called Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems, Ptolemaic and Copernican, appeared in Florence in 1632, people started calling Galileo a blasphemer, for he had questioned the validity of certain passages in the Bible. Galileo was summoned to Rome in 1633. He was pronounced guilty by the Pope and was condemned to life imprisonment. But luckily, the sentence was never carried out and Galileo was never put in a dungeon or tortured. He spent the rest of his life at a villa in the hills above Florence. Even though he was 70 years old at the time, Galileo kept working. He started writing a new book on the sciences of motion and strength of materials. When he suddenly became blind, he spent his time working with a young student, Vincenzo Viviani, who was with him when he died on January 8, 1642. Only in 1992 the Church formally acknowledged its error in condemning Galileo. A sad and long wait for the man who showed us the stars. Thanks for watching. If you like it, please give a thumbs up and share this video to your friends and relatives.